All right, so I want to make a quick video for those of you first timers out here trying to get into the NPC. It doesn't matter which division you're doing, could be bikini, wellness, figure, women's physique, fitness, whatever you want to be doing. This video is just to highlight and give you a little bit more insight into some things you need to know, some very common questions that I get about how to pick, your classes, okay? So let's break down what the classes are and what that means to you, and totally from the perspective of somebody who's never gone down this path. Hopefully some clear answers that's going to help you get there. All right. So no matter what division you choose, okay, you could be a fit model athlete, you could be a bikini athlete, doesn't matter. You are going to have to at some point register for your competition. And whenever you go and do that, you're going to have to register then for the classes that you want to do. And this is where the confusion tends to happen with a lot of athletes. Granted, totally warranted, because it is pretty confusing if you don't know this. Luckily for me, been coaching a very long time. I've helped athletes figure out their registrations thousands of times over. I know this stuff like the back of my hand. So I'm trying to help you gain some insight yourself to reduce some of the stress that can come up on prep, which is, more the what could we call pen and paper side of prep, where you're trying to figure out, okay, how do I do this? What's my class? Okay, so when you go to register for your competition, it's pretty simple. You'll be presented with the options of classes that contain things like True Novice, Novice, Open, and Masters classes. Now, depending, some of the other events may have some other, classes such as like a Heroes class, something like that. We'll go over these classes a bit, and I'll give you a little bit of insight into this and also help you get some ideas about which one is going to be the best for you, which one you may want to consider doing, or if you should just give them all a run, okay? So here's how it works. True Novice is for very first time competitors. Okay, this means if it is your first competition, your very first show, this is technically the only time that you can do this class. Okay, so this class does contain only other first time competitors. It is the only time you can do it. Once you've compete, you're no longer considered True Novice. Won't be able to go back and do that. So this is the one chance you go. It's a great class for anybody who is in that category, in that tier. You're a first-time competitor. It's the first competition you ever done. Or somebody who's just trying to dip their toes in the water, right? Somebody who wants to be competing, but they're not trying to go to the other classes yet, which can be a little bit more competitive in things, as we'll talk about in just a minute. True Novice is a great entry-level class for your first competition. That's why it's there. It's up against only other first-time competitors. And after you complete this event, you won't be able to do it again. So oftentimes, it is a class that you may want to consider if this is your very first competition. Next will be Novice, okay? So Novice class is for anybody who has never placed in the top 5 in their class, right? So this is a class where, again, for beginners, you can go into this class, you can compete at this class, and it's generally going to be athletes that are, again, going to be in that tier, beginners, or at least those who have not yet placed at a higher level, so to speak, within the competition guidelines here. And that is going to mean that it's mostly first timers, hence why it's called Novice. So unlike True Novice, you can compete Novice whenever you want to until you place high enough. Once you've placed high enough, you're not going to be able to compete there. I've seen actually events where we can go back and forth. Sometimes people are still doing Novice, even though they may or may not be technically able to, but most of the time, you're not going to be able to do that. That's going to be a situation where Novice goes away as well as a class option for you, because you're no longer going to be considered a beginner or novice at the point of placing high enough in those classes. So again, great class for anybody who's in that beginning circuit, somebody who has not placed in that higher category yet and is still getting their footing in the sport. And, overall, just another great experience for somebody as a new competitor to be able to do. Another class too, where you could dip your toes in. You don't got to worry about going up against, the more competitive classes, which we're about to talk about, which is Open, okay? So the Open class, now this is the most competitive class on any stage at any NPC event. And the reason is this can be for anyone to do. It could be for a first timer. It could be you, your very first show. You can do the open, but it can also be somebody who's done 50 other competitions prior to you and is trying to, go from this event onto maybe nationals and get a pro card. So realistically, it's the most competitive class. It is also the only class that will qualify you to be able to go to nationals. So you need to, in open class, place top 2. And if you do that at a national qualifying event, you will then be qualified to go to nationals, try to get a pro card, so on and so forth. For those of you that is your goal, that is something you want to do, that is the main reason you're competing, is because you want to compete and you want to go get a pro card. Well, this is the place you're going to spend a lot of time competing, and definitely should consider doing it. It is the most competitive class, as I mentioned, considering that there is no kind of difference here. It doesn't have to be your first show. It doesn't have to be a novice class. You're competing against everyone and anyone in this group. And this is the only class that, again, qualifies you to go to nationals. So you will run into the most advanced levels of competition here that you will see at NPC local events. It doesn't mean it's something you should be afraid of. Doesn't mean you should be scared of it. It's just something you want to know going into this as a competitor, for sure, to figure out where you're going to have your best placings, your best footing, and your best experience going into these competitions. Next is going to be Masters. Okay, so Masters is just like Open in a lot of ways, where it can be anyone, everyone doing it. Could be beginners, could be, people that have done 50 competitions, so on and so forth. The only difference here is the Masters groups work within age tiers. Okay, so generally start at like 35 plus, go to 40 plus, 45 plus. And, it can go on and on. I've had competitors competing in very, very high age groups, 70 plus, so on and so forth, believe it or not. So it definitely can go that way depending on the events and depending on what's going on there. But most of the time, you're definitely going to see those lower tiers such as 35, 40, 45, so on, right? And you'll have to check with your events that you're thinking of registering for, making sure they have those options if you are planning to compete in the Masters class. Now, the cool thing about the Masters class is it will only contain athletes in that group then. So athletes, if you do 35 plus, will be at least 35 years of age, which, to a lot of competitors choosing Masters groups, they like that. They like the idea of that. They like the idea of not going up against a 20-year-old, things like that, right? So if these are the classes you want to compete in, this is where you can do that, specifically in an age tier. These, however, do not all qualify you for nationals. There's going to be specific events that may qualify you for Masters nationals, but you will have to, again, do your research on that, check the shows that you want to do, talk to the promoters even if you need to, if you have questions. These will not qualify you for nationals, though, like an open class will. It may qualify you for Masters nationals in certain situations, okay? So you will want to look at that, check that out, and get a better understanding of that. But these are your main classes. You may, again, see some where there be a heroes class. This is for military only. So, again, just another thing. You may see some other classes at other events. However, these are the bulk. And realistically, when it comes to picking which one you want to do, here's what I say. Here's my advice, my feedback, my ideas, based on the fact that I've trained literally thousands of competitors over the years and put them on stages. I will tell you this. So for every single class, you do have to register, okay? Meaning you're going to have to pay an entry fee. That can add up. That can become, a nice little sticker on price there. And that can definitely be a factor for everyone to consider when you are considering going into these events. So if you're going to pay for, let's say, True Novice, Novice, Open, or even Masters all together, you're going to pay the most, versus someone who just did, True Novice or whatever, right? So you do have to factor that in. If finances in competing and in this goal are important to you in whatever way, you will want to make sure that you understand the registration fees are going to be for each one of these, the entry fees, in other words, and you will have to pay those. That can really add up. Aside from the finance side of things, right? You really do also want to know, though, you are going to gain a massive amount of experience by doing more of these versus less, okay? So let's say you only pick True Novice and you're going to do that. So you'll go out on stage, you'll do your routine, compare, and then you're done. Basically, that's really how it works, right? Your routine's going to be about 10 seconds on stage. They'll do some comparisons. Who knows how long? Maybe a couple more minutes up there, and then you'll be off the stage. You're back for finals, which is just awards, and that's it. So you can end up being on prep, for a very long time. Some athletes take 6 months, a year, it could be more, to get themselves ready to do a prep, then at that point, and go to stage for just minutes. And some athletes are totally fine with that. They're excited with it. They don't want to be on the heels and, all done up and everything on stage for longer than that. And that's great. And they love that. And some athletes are, they get off stage and they feel like, wow, that was a lot of work for such a short amount of time on stage. So you kind of got to know where you want to fit and what you're going to be doing. Because, for example, if you do more classes than that, right? Let's say you did True Novice, Novice, and Open. Well, now you get to go on stage for all three of these. You'll be on stage for True Novice, and then you'll be on stage for Novice, and then you'll be on stage for Open. So you do end up gaining the most actual stage time and the most actual stage experience, in other words, by doing more of the classes themselves. And so that's, a lot of times I tell competitors, hey, it's a good idea to do more versus less. If finances are a big thing and, you're stretching the bank to get there, then maybe consider less, and that's okay. Or if you don't want to spend a lot of time on stage, but if you want the most experience, you can literally get the experience of like 3 or 4 competitions in one event if you do more classes, right? Because if you did, let's just say one, and you did only Novice or something like that, and you went out there, did your routine, got a couple comparisons, got off stage, spent a few minutes on the competition stage overall. Well, now, depending what you do next, you're going to have to go wait for the next comp, register for another one. I mean, if you did one class every competition, it would take you 4 competitions, 3-4 competitions to equate to what somebody could do in one if they did all 3 or 4 classes they were eligible to do, right? So you do actually gain a lot more experience. You'll get more comfortable with your posing, get more comfortable on stage, get more, feedback. Judges get more time to look at your physique, give you better feedback in that way so you can take that and go apply that and work your training better and do whatever you need to do to continue to improve. And ultimately, it becomes something where you can gain 4 times, 4 different shows worth of experience in one event if you do fit, into the Masters category in that case. Otherwise, it'd be 3. But the point is, you can gain a lot more experience from being on stage more. And generally, right, if it's going to go well for you, if you are a competitor who has prepped and done your due diligence and got your physique where it needs to be, and you got a good coach and you're on par criteria, it will be a very fun day. You will have a very, heavy neck is what I call it with my athletes. When they get so many medals, I'm like, well, your neck is going to get some gains because it's holding up all this gold at that point, right? So like if you're going to do good in one of them, you're probably going to do good across the board. And that's a good thing. And even if you're not going to necessarily do good, you do benefit either way from gaining more experience then, right? Like let's say you get, maybe 6 or something in all of your classes. Well, you still got 4 times the experience on stage, 3 times the experience on stage. You have a much better shot at going on to your next competition, doing better there just from that experience alone, right? And you're going to get a lot more clear feedback from judges, and thus they can give you that, and you can take that to your training, apply that, and improve your placings at a future competition. So ultimately, I do tell athletes in general, my athletes, and also people that ask me questions, do as many classes as you can, and you're going to basically become a better competitor for it. And so that's a really important consideration for all of you out there. I would suggest looking into your event, seeing which ones they're going to be offering there, is specifically for age tiers. If you are in a specific age tier and you only want to do that one or something like that, make sure they're going to have the one that you want. But overall, these are some things that you may want to know as a new competitor, somebody out there trying to figure out your way. I'm trying to make more videos like this to really highlight things that are confusing to people. This is one of those questions I get all the time. I want to know if you have more questions, okay? What other things do you want me to cover? What other things do you want more in-depth answers for? And comment them down below. Subscribe on the channel. I will do a video on it, and I will make sure that it's addressed and followed up, all right? And I appreciate you watching. Thank you. Coach Ryan is out.